Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Today interview time. Today I have Mr. Alex Heikens, the country representative of UNICEF to Mongolia, in our studio to talk about challenges and issues that Mongolian children are facing. Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. So let's start just talking about the UNICEF in Mongolia, about your office, how many people you have, what kind of projects do you guys implement in Mongolia?
Yeah. We've been here in Mongolia for about 25 years now, really working for every child in Mongolia. And as you say, there are quite a lot of challenges, but we also have a strong team, which is great. We have about 35 people, 31 of them are Mongolians, and then we have 4 internationals, including myself. The program is covering a lot of different aspects of children's rights, just to name a couple of topics. Health, nutrition, education, child protection, social policy, working with the private sector. So it's quite diverse, and that is very much needed.
So about yourself, about Mr. Heikens.
Yes.
How long have you been here in Mongolia?
Fairly recent. I arrived last July. So yesterday was my first Children's Day here in Mongolia, which is of course really nice. Before that I was in UNICEF headquarters. I was the global advisor on environmental issues for 4 years. And in that context I started to work with Mongolia because of the air pollution crisis. And then when the position opened up to become a representative, I immediately jumped on it because I already knew the country a little bit, I knew the team, and I knew that this would be a really exciting opportunity to contribute to the challenges that Mongolian children are facing.
So just to start with, why work with children? From your personal perspective.
Yes. Well, you know, I have children myself, 2 daughters, 13 and 15, and you know, your children are everything. Your children are your future, whether it's for you as parents or for you as a country. Investing in your children is the best investment that you can make, both from a social perspective, but even also from an economic perspective. It is your human capital. So the earlier you invest in them in every possible way, the better they will do, the better citizens they will be, and the happier they will be.
When it comes to Mongolian children, and especially, to my opinion, the water sanitation and hygiene is a big challenge. And you have mentioned also different sectors you guys work on. When it comes to water sanitation and hygiene, what are the problems and challenges that we are facing in Mongolia?
First of all, of course, you see a big difference between the countrysides and the cities. So in the countryside, access to good quality water and sanitation and hygiene is really, really limited. In the city, it is much better. But at the same time, when you look in the city, you see big differences between, you know, for example, where I live in Zaisan and in the Gur districts. And you know, when you have more than basically 1.5 million people living in one city, and the water sanitation hygiene situation is not properly sorted out, it brings all kinds of risks to children's health, to people's health, and simply to the quality of life. There's also some good progress being made. I mean, for example, one of the things that our office has been working on is water tariffs.
Water tariffs?
Yes.
Okay.
How much do we pay for drinking water? And then what you see, that there is a big difference between how much people pay in the Gur districts who don't have access to tap water, and how much people pay who live in apartments. And the people in the Gur districts actually pay much more for water than those who live in apartments. So that is not fair, to put it simple.
Yes.
So that is something that is now being adjusted. It has been agreed that there will be changes made to the drinking water tariffs, and I think that is fair, and that is a good development.
What kind of projects do you guys implement? How do you help to balance those imbalanced and unfair situations?
A different example of some of the work we do is around water and sanitation for kindergartens. Now, if you go to many kindergartens, there is a big problem with toilets, very simple. So one of the things that we've been doing over the last couple of years is to come up with a model using a container and turn that container into a water sanitation hygiene facility that you attach to the kindergarten. So now the children in those kindergartens have proper toilets, can wash their hands, can brush their teeth, and we've done it increasingly with a number of partners, both from the private sector and some NGOs, and of course with the government. And that model is now being scaled up by others as well. So you show how something can look like, then you advocate for scaling up, you work with different partners, and if all comes together, then you see indeed that things start to take off and you can go to scale.
Well, my second challenge that we are facing is obviously in front of our eyes. During the winter time, we have great smoke problem.
Yeah.
And is there anything you guys are doing regarding that problem?
Yeah.
Any kind of project?
Yeah. No, it's absolutely, it is a very, very serious issue. I think we can call it a maternal and child health crisis that we are facing. And the real problem is it's not just one winter. It is winter after winter after winter. So the problem has already been ongoing now for more than 10 years. Sometimes with a little bit improvement in air quality, but generally speaking, the air quality has been bad for a very long time during the winter. And as I found out, the winter is really long here in Mongolia. Now, the problem with that is that you now have a first generation of children that has been breathing basically nothing else but polluted air during the winter here in UB, and also increasingly we hear about the problems in some of the IMAG centers that also have air pollution problems, but it is not being monitored, so people don't really talk about it. So it's a profound problem that will have also long-term consequences, because what we already see is that more and more children have pneumonia year after year. Pneumonia, lung infections. Asthma is going up. And those problems, when they get older, there is a risk that it will get worse when they are grown-ups. So you already know that in 10, 20 years from now, you will have even more costs, public health costs, because of the current pollution situation now. Now, of course, the only solution, the permanent solution, the long-term solution, is to get rid of the air pollution. And many development partners and governments are investing in that, in looking at better heating solutions, better infrastructure. Now that's all essential to do, but at the same time we know the solution, the problem is not solved next winter.
Yes.
So what do we expect people to do in the meantime? You can't expect people to hold their breath for the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, or how long it may take. So it's also really important to do whatever we can, and we are working with government and partners on that, to, for example, at least to improve the indoor air quality. Indoor air quality.
Meanwhile, right?
Yes, within the kindergartens, within the schools, within the hospitals. Now, some investments have already been made by government by providing air purifiers. There is more that needs to be done to make it as good as possible. You need to look at the whole building envelope. You need to look at people's behavior in terms of not opening the windows during the winter, for example. So reducing the exposure, in the places where children spend a lot of time, and pregnant women as well, which is really important, is something that we are working on. Then the second element that we work on is around healthcare itself. Now, what if my child does get sick and I go to a family healthcare center and I cannot afford the best quality antibiotics to treat the pneumonia? I may be buying antibiotics that doesn't work very well. My child doesn't respond well to it. The child gets sick even worse. The child may end up being hospitalized. So what can we do in terms of the primary health care to improve access to good and affordable medicine for children from poor families? So that's one thing. And then the second part, of course, is if children do end up in the hospital, it needs to be really clear on what can be done and that the hospitals are prepared for it. We've all seen the pictures from last winter again, you know, a number of hospitals with children in the corridors on stretchers, and you know, every time it seems that the hospitals are quite overwhelmed. I definitely appreciate the commitment from the Ministry of Health to continue to improve the situation, and we will certainly continue to support them with that, because again, we cannot expect people to hold their breath for the next 5 years or so. We need to work on reducing exposure, improving the health services, and at the same time also really make it clear to those who invest in improving the heating situation that this is absolutely urgent. This cannot wait.
So what kind of support does UNICEF need from the private sectors? Well, government is obviously, you know, working on it, but it's not UNICEF's job itself. What kind of supports and what kind of collaborations does these problems need from the private sectors and individuals?
If we look at the private sector, we have already some interesting collaboration going on, and that goes well beyond air pollution. In the context of the child-friendly business principles, in the context of corporate social responsibility, UNICEF is already working with MNCCI and the Mongolian Business Council, and also through that work, we've been able to influence and agree with various private sector partners for them to, for example, invest in kindergartens, the kindergarten as a whole, providing better water and sanitation facilities to the kindergartens, and also to help them to improve the indoor air quality by providing air purifiers. So also, for example, through corporate social responsibility, the private sector can definitely support children with better dealing with the air pollution crisis, but also any of the other topics that need to be addressed. For example, such as online child protection. Also, there is a role for the private sector to play. So I think there are many opportunities for the private sector to support children in different ways, and also really take their responsibility to do the right thing.
So I want you to clarify what's in it for private sector to support children in a bigger picture. It's obvious, but you know, I need you to clarify and, you know, elaborate on it.
Yes, I think traditionally people were, you know, with the private sector often thinking it's about corporate social responsibility, provide some funds to a kindergarten or maybe a school, and then we're done with it. That's good.
Yes.
Well, it's a good start. Let's put it like that. But if you look at the child rights and business principles, it has 3 elements to it. First of all, you need to look at your own policies regarding your own human resources, your own people in your company. You know, for example, in your company, maternity leave, how is that organized? Is there space for women for breastfeeding? Is there paternity leave? In many countries there is now. I don't know yet if it is in Mongolia, to be frank. But for sure you can look at your own policies with regards to your employees and their children. Then the second element is around the products and the marketing around your products. For example, if you think about, you know, we have increasing problems with obesity in Mongolia. The numbers are quite staggering. I believe it's about more than 25% of all the children going to school have obesity problems.
That's quite a high number.
That's a very, very high number. And so you think about the fast food, you think about the fizzy drinks, sugary drinks. So people also in the private sector need to think about, well, what are the implications of my marketing campaigns on children's health? So it's also about the products that you produce. And then the third element...
Being responsible about your marketing.
Yeah, I mean, for example, what we are saying, you know, around schools and kindergartens, you need to have a healthy food environment. So one can argue that, you know, a fast food restaurant should not be sitting next to the school. Because then you can imagine where the kids will be going for school lunch, and that's not in their interest, because it is well proven that good nutrition helps, for example, with brain development. Well, that's a game changer if you think about your long-term prospects in terms of learning at school, going to university, getting the best possible job. Nutrition really matters in that context. A third element around private sector is the potential influence or impact that a private sector can have on the community around its operations. For example, if you think about mining operations, you think about access to land, the use of water. Mining operations use land, they use water in most cases. Well, what are the implications for the nearby communities? And how do you make it work so that it is fair to the communities, including the children living in those communities? So those are the kind of three aspects that are important for the private sector to look into. And we are very pleased with more and more private sector companies coming to us, working with us, speaking about it, and starting to figure out how do we move forward with this beyond only giving some funds here and there.
Here and there.
Yeah, but take a more integrated, holistic approach for children.
Well, we have covered some obvious problems, the water sanitation and pollution. What is, if I ask you, just name one very overlooked problem that we are not, that the society is not seeing, that Mongolian children are facing in today's society?
Yeah, if I have to pick one, then mental health.
Mental health?
Yeah, teenagers and mental health challenges.
What's the situation?
Well, first of all, what it is clear is the problem is becoming bigger. We start to see more and more teenagers struggling with all kinds of issues in life, whether it is bullying at school or online, harassment. So there are all kinds of problems that they're dealing with, and they don't know how to deal with it and where to go with it. And I think that is very, very disturbing. We don't have sufficient data and information yet to really have a comprehensive overview. But if we talk about one issue that has been overlooked so far, and not only in Mongolia, by the way, there are many countries where people have been always focusing on, okay, a kid needs food, water, shelter, education, you name it, which is all true. And then you need to take the next step and think about their mental health. Because your brain is everything, and that needs to be in the best possible shape. And that's, I think, where there is still a lot to do. Also, especially in this day and age, where we see more and more children living a significant part of their life in the virtual world.
Virtual world, yes.
Yes, we have two worlds now.
Yes.
And as you know, as a parent myself, I'm not that familiar with the virtual world that they are living in.
Yes.
Because when I was their age, we didn't have any of that. So it's so rapidly changing that it's also quite challenging for parents to keep up with all those developments, and also for government, of course.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we have limited time, and I would like to leave the last minute to you, and if there's anything you would like to say to Mongolian children, the moment is yours.
Yeah, I think for Mongolian children, this decade moving forward is really the time to shine. One of the things that I've realized coming to Mongolia is that the potential here is incredible. People need to stand up, grab that opportunity and run with it, because I think there is so much untapped potential amongst the children, amongst the youth, that the whole country would benefit from, including themselves. So I really look forward to seeing that, and for UNICEF to support that.
Well, thanks very much again. And I wish you good health and good luck with all the good work that you're doing in Mongolia.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you very much for staying with us. We will see you next Tuesday with more news and updates. Have a good evening. Goodbye.